So it's easy enough to think about progressive Christians. Progressive, I mean, in the using the categories of American politics or European. You think of groups like Sojourners or other things like that are typically on the lefter side of things and
Yeah.
mainline Protestantism. Do you have any examples of this type of thinking, though, from the conservative side, maybe even a theonomic side?
Well, it's this is a stunning thing, Camden. Back in I believe it was 1987. It's the year I became a Christian. Now that I'm thinking about it, Gary North, who I still own in various places almost everything he wrote. I bought and read his material back when I became a Christian in the late 80s. He has a book entitled Dominion and Common Grace. And let me just give you the thesis, and I'll give you a couple of quotes. But it's a stunning book for this reason. He advocates that we should ask unbelievers to attain cultural prosperity through partial obedience that comes from unregenerate hearts. And the goal for doing it, we should just be honest, is the attainment of the gifts of cultural dominion. Partial obedience yields external blessing, whether you believe in God or not. And it's a stunning thesis. I think I've overused that term. An astonishing one. Listen to what he says. I'll give you a couple of quotes from pages 173 and then 176 and 77. He says, a theology that is orthodox must include a doctrine of common grace that is intimately related to biblical law. Law does not save men's souls, but partial obedience to it does save their bodies and their culture. Down on 176 and 7, the law of God is a tool of dominion. When men adhere to its principles externally, they receive God's external blessings. This common grace obedience brings external blessings, and it may also bring external influence. Now, what is so surprising about this is that you wouldn't expect a Calvinist who has a very high doctrine of sin to say that unbelievers can mechanically bring about external blessings by partial, faithless conformity to moral civil laws. But he goes so far in that volume to describe Isaiah 65, 17 through 25 about the new heavens and new earth as something that is realized, at least partially, through external conformity to God's moral law so that all might enjoy outward temporary blessings. And the thing that's ironic about it, and I'm not picking on Gary North, I think this is the most problematic thing he ever argued, and but it shows where his theonomic hermeneutic led him, is that the problem of the theocracy is just that. That people were offering partial, half-hearted, insincere obedience to God and prioritized the cultural and social benefits above God himself. And in fact, exchanged the worship and service of the Creator for the accumulation of material goods and financial prosperity. They exchanged worship for influence and affluence in the land. And so I think it's really a surprising thing for a Reformed theologian to make that sort of claim, because he's saying something very hard to distinguish from more traditional social gospel approaches, where we're just trying to make the conditions of our social and economic status better. But it's also, and I think more ironically, it's the polar far side of what Voss is saying. And it's actually, if we compared North to Voss on this, North would be advocating behavior that caused Israel's exile because it was not behavior appropriate to the worship and service of God and the priority of his glory and the enjoyment of his presence. So it's a real stunning.
Yeah. You think there might be, I haven't read the book, so I don't know this whole argument in context. at least if he's speaking in terms of contemporary issues, like doing this today, so there's no possibility of retention of, typological land blessings. We're not going to get exiled. We'll get judged. But is he maybe also saying something like, well, in general, if you do things that God wants, I mean, it'll go better for you, even if you're not doing them for the right reasons, or you don't have a regenerate heart. If you don't kill your unborn children, your society will be better off. If you don't, allow for people to steal from one another, generally you'll prosper better.
Yeah, it's more radical than that.
I figure it is.
I'll give you the broader. I don't want to get lost on North, because this book, of all the books he wrote when I was younger, this one fascinated me the most. And I knew intuitively it was just not right, but didn't know until, a few years exactly how to critique it. He's saying that this stores up wrath for them because they're doing things that they know bring success for them in history, but they're doing it in rebellion against God. And so it stores up wrath for them. So this temporal prosperity is actually something that's storing up wrath for the unbeliever. But secondly, and this is the more radical character of the claim, he's not just saying, generally it's going to go better for you if you don't steal and kill. That's been said by hundreds and thousands of
which
people.
Is true enough.
Which is a truism. North is saying that this is actually the mechanism by which the golden age on earth is realized.
Yeah, that's a major problem.
And and so for him, I would call it a kind of this is a little harsh, but it'll make my point. It's a thesis that is forged toward a utopian end of a millennial kingdom, a time of unprecedented prosperity. Now, Christians get both. This is a strange way of putting it, but Christians get both the spiritual blessings and the cultural blessings. But when all the people on earth recognize how prosperous it is to obey and be blessed with temporal, financial, cultural blessings, they will do it. And as they do it, it will be the mechanism through which the golden age is realized progressively on earth, and dominion comes, and the prophecy of Isaiah 65 comes to its earthly fulfillment.